This short podcast is based on my book Changez Force Battle, describing the massive and unforgivable operational failure of the One Corps in 1971 war. The Pakistani concept of operation was very interesting and viable, although arrived at the last moment, at the spur of the moment. Perhaps this was one of the major reasons why it failed. There were three minefield layers between two brigades of the 8th Division deployed to defend the northern part of the Shakargarh Bulge. As you can see, on the right was the 14th Para Brigade holding the main Shakargarh strong point, and on the left was the 24th Brigade holding the Zafarwal strong point. A delaying force comprising 20 lancers and 33 cavalry was in the middle. This was known as the Changez Force, commanding by the man who saved Pakistan in 65 war, Brigadier Nisar, the famous Patiala Pathan. Now, this force was also hastily assembled, which gives an idea how confused was Gul Hassan's mind at that time. As my father recollected, he was tasked on 1st November to lay these three minefields, and maps were given, but there was no clear idea who would hold them. It was unknown. Colonel Yahya Findi, who was the Deputy Administrative Quartermaster, the DQ of Changez Force, cleared this mystery. He said that the very idea of raising this force was just given 2 days before the war. So there was no clarity as far as the One Corps concept of operation was concerned, even in the mind of Gul Hassan, the Chief of General Staff. However, by the time war started, a force was in place. 3 minefields had been laid by 6th Engineer Battalion in November 1971 in a period of 1 month, while this Changez Force, hastily assembled, was deployed a day before the war on the minefield layers. The idea was that this force would delay the Indians and suck them inside, and Pakistan's 6th Armored Division, which had about 2 tank regiments only, but still a potent force, and Pakistan's 8th Armored Brigade, which had 3 tank regiments, would counterattack and destroy this Indian force advancing inside. Primarily, the most vulnerable Indian target was the 54th Indian Division, the westernmost Indian division of the Indian Corps, advancing into Shakargarh Bulge. This was the idea. Pakistan's 17th Division, with just 1 brigade, was also deployed on the Marala Ravi Canal, as you can see in the rear. Now, how this whole idea was spoilt, how the indecision, vacillation of the One Corps led to complete failure, we will discuss shortly in this very, very brief podcast. As you can see, I will straight go to the gist of the matter. As you can see, this is the triple layer minefield. 24 Brigade is on the left, as you can see. 14 Para Brigade is on the right, And this Changez Force, as you can see, 20 Lancers and 33 cavalry and 13 Punjab, has to delay the Indians over these 3 minefield layers. The Pakistani decision makers, including Gul Hassan, were so defeatist and so panicky in their attitude that they thought that Changez Force would be only able to delay the Indian for 72 hours. In reality, the Changez Force delayed the Indians for almost 11 days. Now, as you can see, the as you can see, 6th Summer Division was deployed in the depth, 8th Brigade a little forward, as you can see, and this was how the 8th Division was deployed. Just to give you an idea, this is the triple layer minefield battle which Pakistani writers have evaded and avoided. So we will go straight to the major parts of the battle to explain to the layman reader how the failure occurred, what went wrong, how the 1 Corps, because of its indecision, totally failed. Now, as you can see, this is the most important part of the battle. 54 Indian Division on 5th 6th December night breached the first minefield layer, as you can see, and crossed across the minefield layer using 4 Hodson's horse and 2 brigades. As you can see, this is how the 54 Indian Division crossed the first minefield layer, marked in green, as you can see, across Ghagardwara, Bhagwal, etc., Amral. This is how the 54 Division breached. Now the 54 Division was struck between the first minefield layer, as you can see, marked in green, Ghagardwara, Lagwal, and the second minefield layer marked by Chakra, Lohara, Ghamrola, as you can see. This is the first and second minefield layer, and Indian 54 Division was going to be stuck in between these 2 layers for the next almost 6 to 7 days, as you can see. This was that critical time span in which the Pakistani 1 Corps, having 5 uncommitted tank regiments, could have counterattacked the Indians and seized the initiative. At least they could have created an operational crisis in the Indian army, and there would have been no battle of Badapend or the 35 FF disaster of 8th Division, which was covered by giving Hilal-e-Jurat, typical of our Third World armies. Now, Indian 54 Division and 39 Division were advancing like this, as you can see, and 54 Division could have been the most vulnerable division if Pakistani 1 Corps commander had any leadership quality or any fraction of boldness, which he did not have. And as a reward, he was sent as ambassador by General Zia after retirement, typical of the Pakistan army. Christian CEO of 11 Baluch was scapegoated, and everyone else was promoted. 8th Division commander was promoted, 3-star. 1 Corps commander retired honorably and went as ambassador. Only the 11 Baluch CEO was penalized. Even the 8th Brigade commander, responsible for the Badapend fiasco, was given a cushy job in the Punjab Urban Transport Corporation in Lahore and later sent to the Machi Goat Fauji fertilizer factory. So everybody was given cushy jobs. Even Herbert was later rehabilitated by General Zia and made a minister. Now this is the Changez Force battle, but this is not our subject. Now we will go straight to the situation. As you can see now, these Pakistani units were deployed on the second minefield layer, the Changez Force primarily. Actually, 8th Division hardly did any fighting. It was the Changez Force alone which did most of the fighting, or perhaps 19 FF. Changez Force was technically under command 8th Division, but all its decisions were made by its brilliant Patiala Pathan Brigadier Nisar. As you can see, now the Pakistanis are holding the second minefield layer, as you can see. Now this is the deployment of Changez Force on the second minefield layer, as you can see. 2 regiments, 20 lancers and 33 cavalry holding the second minefield layer. As you can see clearly, situation on 6 December, 20 lancers withdraws to second minefield layer. As you can see, this is the condition now. Now Indian 54th Division was stuck between first and second minefield for the next almost 6 days. But Pakistani 1 Corps commander was totally paralyzed. Colonel Sami, who had met him during this period, described his hand as colder than hands of a dead man. Such was his condition, pale expression and totally paralyzed, Total, it was a pathetic condition. As you can see, we will go straight now to the failure instead of wasting time. As you can see, Indians were stuck between 2 minefields from 7 to 10 December. They were vulnerable, especially from the left flank. As you can see, this was ideal for the 6th Armored Division or the 8th Brigade to counterattack the Indians. But Irshaad had lost his nerve. Abdulla Saeed described him as an already dead man. This was the condition. As you can see now, the misfortune finally, Indians realizing that the Pakistani enemy in front was totally behaving like a pussy cat, they decided to switch their effort to the far east flank and they went for Chakra, which was one of the Changez Force points, defense points held by 2 troops of 33 cavalry and company of 13th Punjab. Here the DQ Changez Force, Colonel Yahya Afindi blames the 33 Punjab company for bolting, and I think there is substance in his argument, because 33 Punjab only suffered 4 fatal casualties in whole of the 71 war, which is mind-boggling, which means that the infantry battalion did no fighting, and Chakra was the black mark on the history of this battalion, sadly attested by, of course, Colonel Yahya Afindi. Now when Chakra was captured, the whole Pakistani line holding the second minefield layer was destabilized, and this is what led to the Badapant failure ultimately on 16 December. As you can see, the Indians launched a night attack using a squadron of Hudson's Horse and a grenadier battalion, and they captured Chakra. These 6 days were the ideal time for the Pakistani 6th Armored Division to attack and, if not destroy, at least destabilize and unnerve the 54 Indian Division, whose commander and everybody made very tall claims after the war. It was basically Pakistani indecision which helped this division, otherwise it hardly faced any odds. It suffered very low casualties. I think total 76 casualties they suffered. Now as you can see, we will go straight. Now the disaster at Chakra on the second minefield layer forced the Pakistani Changez Force to abandon the entire second minefield layer and withdraw to the third minefield layer, and this was the undoing of one corps. As you can see, now there is a school of thought that even gallantry awards were awarded to cover one corps failures, but more on that later. We will discuss the further development of the battle now. As you can see, now the Indians, as you can see, they breached the second minefield layer like this, as you can see, and initially they went south towards another chakra and Ramri, as you can see, leisurely, one corps doing nothing, although at this stage also the one corps could have attacked between the first and second minefield layer, while this force was still in the deep south and totally destabilized them. But again, no decision. As you can see, leisurely the Indians fell back northwards, as you can see, and finally, as you can see, we will go straight to the situation. Finally, they attacked on 15 December 1971. Indian 47 Brigade of 54 Division was concentrated opposite Lagwal, and an assault was planned on night 15-16 December 1971. Pune horse was to be inducted into the bridgehead, as Indians had good intel that 8th Independent Armored Brigade was in Zafarwal area and would counterattack the bridgehead. Already before the war, the brigade major of 14th Para Brigade, Manzoor, had defected, and the Indians had a very good idea about the Pakistani dispositions in this area. Particularly, they had very good intelligence about a very vulnerable gap between 11 Baluch and 24 Punjab, which was held by a just RNS company. And even before the war, attention of 8th Division commander was drawn to this imbalance, that this RNS company should be replaced by a battalion, but he brushed aside the idea. Another weak link was the 24th Brigade, whose commander Sher Ali Baz had spent most of his time in intelligence, and to further complicate and add to the misfortune, his brigade major was a commando officer who had very rudimentary ideas about the infantry operations and tactics. That was the sad part. Now, as you can see, the Indian 47 Brigade attacked across the Basantar River in a gap which was held by just an RNS company. Now, what an RNS company could do in front of 3 infantry battalions? But this company was also scapegoated. I have always disputed the fact that this company was covered. I don't agree. 21 Baluch suffered the highest infantry casualties in 8 division units except 35 FF. So I don't agree with this contention. Anyhow, a bridgehead was established, and now the one corps commander, behaving like a drill sergeant major, ordered a direct frontal attack on this bridgehead, which of course, as we know, was a complete disaster. The bottom line is that all this was unnecessary. This failure would never have occurred if the one corps had attacked the Indian 54 Division between the 6th and 12th December, which was very much within its grasp. And the bottom line is that 2 regiments of 6th Armored Division, 24 Cavalry and 25 Cavalry sat like langar champions doing nothing. 8th Brigade was a total failure, written off, and did nothing significant except bloody frontal attacks, which were total failures. So this was the biggest disaster of the 71 war, much hushed up, and sadly Gul Hassan Khan, of course since he was a party to it, he also praised one corps and praised the one corps commander in his memoirs, in his sloppily and shoddily written memoirs. And this is just a short summing up of the one corps disaster of 71 war based on my book Changez Force Battle.